Today we're going to be taking a look at this budget Levelhike HDMI cable on real hardware and then compare it to the official N64 emulation on the Nintendo Switch. So let's take a look at what's in this box. An HDMI cable, then you get this Nintendo compatible cable. This is the end that plugs into your Nintendo system. Now this can go into a Nintendo 64, a GameCube, or a Super Nintendo. And then here's the other end, and as you can see here, it's got a switch. And this switch allows you to switch it from 4:3 aspect ratio to 16:9. The 4:3 ratio would be the default that all these systems are supposed to display, which is like old school TV. And then 16:9 is if you want to stretch the image out to fill up the entire screen. We also get the power supply, which you'll need in order to run this. So all you do is you plug this into the back of your Nintendo, like so. And with that plugged in, you just need to plug in the power supply to the adapter. Then you just plug it into the TV, and we start playing games. Let's go. So before we take a look at the side-by-side comparisons between the original console and the official Nintendo Switch emulations, we should talk about what the features of the Levelhike cable are. This footage was captured on an Elgato HD60, and while there's added compression and artifacts, what you see here is probably fairly accurate to how it will look on your modern TV. So like we discussed earlier, there's a 4:3 mode and a 16:9 mode. The 4:3 is as intended, whereas the 16:9 stretches the image out so it fits the full frame of a modern TV. Personally, I prefer to have the 4:3 because that is how the game designers intended for these to play. But I understand when people want the full screen filled up. They don't like those black bars on the side. But this does stretch the image a little bit and makes it a little more warped than it should be. And we'll talk about this a little bit later in regards to how Nintendo officially sizes their games. So how does this stack up to the emulation that's been released on Switch? Well, here's the part where we compare them side by side. Let's take a look at Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. The one on the left is the original hardware using the Levelhike cable, while the one on the right is the Nintendo Switch version. You can see how the Levelhike has a little bit of wobble in the 1990-1991 below, and the colors are slightly off. I would say the red is slightly deeper on the Levelhike, and the yellows are a little less bright. You can see Mario and Yoshi kind of wobble and kind of go in and out of a cartoon-like appearance, while the Switch version, you can definitely see each and every pixel in its own pronounced way. Now, some people might love this. If you grew up playing a Super Nintendo on CRT TVs, you probably weren't able to see the pixels so sharply and clearly. Many people argued that the pixels are actually meant to be smeared to give the game a more cartoony-like appearance. Anyway, let's take a look at a different game. So this is Kirby and the Crystal Shards. And as you can see, like the Super Nintendo, the Levelhike version is kind of smeary compared to the Switch version. Now, whether or not that's good or bad, that's really up to you. Is this something that's going to affect your gameplay? Personally, for me, it doesn't affect the gameplay. It is nicer to see the sharper graphics and 3D renders in the Nintendo Switch version, but it's not a game-breaking thing. And one other quick thing to keep in mind, the version you see on the Switch, you'll never get that clean of a version on a vintage analog console. Now, why is that? The Levelhike scales the image after the image has been produced, while the Switch, using modern emulation technology, is scaling the image within the game, and therefore it can scale the image to be much more sharp with much more detail because it has that capability to take the code that's within the game and upscale it with a particular roundness or sharpness to each individual polygon. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, look at how dark the Levelhike version is compared to the Nintendo Switch version. Now you might ask, why is that? Is that the Levelhike cable making it darker? Well, possibly slightly darker. But something that a lot of people don't know about the Nintendo 64 is that almost all of the games are ran through a smear filter and a blur filter. And this smeary blur filter that was put on all these N64 games does add darkness. And so what Nintendo has done, and a lot of emulation hackers have done, is figured out a way to remove that blur filter, which is another reason why you get less blurry images on the emulated Nintendo Switch version as compared to the standard analog N64 version. Now, however, as a bonus, there are ways to bypass this N64 blur and have your cartridges, yes, real cartridges, looking better. However, there is a hitch. So what's the hitch? Well, you need a Game Shark or an EverDrive. Either one of these. The idea is you can enter a code into the Game Shark or just hack the N64 ROM to remove the blur. Now, if this is something that interests you, make sure you hit the comments below and check out what I left there, because there'll be a link to more information on what these codes are and where you can get them. And just for comparison's sake, I'm going to show you a side-by-side of Mario 64. Both ran through the Levelhike, the left side being the one that has removed the blur filter, while the right side is the standard edition. And to me, this just looks amazing. You can totally see a difference. Look at how much more clear the non-blurred version is. These emulated games are doing a lot more behind the scenes to make them look so good. So for what the Levelhike is, it's not so bad. So look, it's not the best thing in the world, but it's pretty decent if you just want to play your old games. Or if you're a streamer and you want to stream these games and use original hardware, it's probably one of the most cost-effective options for you. You don't feel much lag, and the games look fairly true to the originals. Does it beat the look of the Switch? No. But with the Switch, unless you have one of the special N64 controllers or the Super Nintendo controllers, you're not going to get the same feel either. So I'd say this is a decent budget option for playing your old school Nintendo games, whether that be on the N64, the Super Nintendo, or the GameCube. If you have any questions about the Levelhike adapter, feel free to ask in the comments below. I'm always happy to answer anything you might have to ask. Is this something you own? Do you own a higher end way to upscale your games for retro consoles? If so, let us know your experience in the comments. Let's get a discussion going. If you like what you saw, go ahead and look through our other videos. You might find something else you like. Share this video if you found it useful. And heck, if you're feeling extra saucy, go ahead and give it a like. Until next time, see you soon.